In a small, sleepy town in the southern part of the United States, there lived an elderly black man named Mr. Elijah Johnson. He was a quiet and humble soul, someone who carried himself with grace despite the hardships life had thrown his way. Everyone in the neighborhood knew him as a kind man who always greeted others with a warm smile. Though he didn't have much money, Elijah had spent years carefully saving every penny from his modest pension. His dream was simple but meaningful: to buy new furniture for his home so that it could become a cozy gathering place for his family, especially his grandchildren. For months, Elijah had been planning this special day. He imagined how happy his grandchildren would be sitting around a beautiful dining table or relaxing on a comfortable sofa during their visits. It wasn't just about buying furniture, it was about creating memories. On a bright Saturday morning, Elijah woke up early, dressed neatly in slacks, a crisp button-up shirt, and polished shoes. With a sense of pride swelling in his chest, he set off toward the local furniture store, a place he had seen advertised on billboards all over town. When Elijah arrived at the store, he took a deep breath before walking through its glass doors. Inside, the showroom gleamed with rows of luxurious sofas, elegant dining sets, and intricately carved wooden beds. The air smelled faintly of polish and fresh fabric, and soft music played in the background. For a moment, Elijah felt like he was stepping into another world, one where comfort and beauty were within reach. But as soon as he entered, something changed. Some of the staff behind the counters exchanged quick glances when they saw him. A young salesman approached him hesitantly, nodding briefly before asking, "Can I help you, sir?" Elijah nodded politely and explained that he wanted to look at some sofas and dining tables. At first, the man seemed willing to assist, but his tone quickly shifted. Instead of showing Elijah the wide range of options available, he began pointing out only the cheapest pieces in the store. Elijah noticed the difference immediately. Other customers, many of them white, were being treated very differently. Salespeople flocked around them, offering enthusiastic recommendations and answering questions with genuine interest. But whenever Elijah tried to engage someone, they either gave vague answers or ignored him altogether. One woman even rolled her eyes when he asked about payment plans, whispering loudly enough for him to hear, "Why do people come here if they can't afford anything?" These actions stung deeply, but Elijah chose not to react. He reminded himself why he was there: to fulfill his dream of making his home more welcoming for his family. Still, he couldn't shake off the feeling of being invisible, as though his presence didn't matter simply because of the color of his skin. Despite the disrespect, Elijah moved forward, determined not to let anyone ruin his day. He decided to browse the store on his own, taking his time to admire each piece and imagine how it might fit into his home. As he wandered through the aisles, Elijah found himself drawn to a stunning mahogany dining set. Its rich, dark wood shone under the showroom lights, and the chairs were upholstered in soft, cream-colored fabric. It was perfect, the exact style he'd envisioned for his dining room. But when he lingered near the display, hoping to catch the attention of a salesperson, no one came to help him. Instead, a young couple walked up to the same set moments later, and suddenly, two eager salespeople appeared, showering them with compliments about the craftsmanship and design. Watching this unfold made Elijah's heart ache. He realized that the staff assumed he couldn't afford such expensive items, dismissing him without giving him a chance. Yet instead of letting anger consume him, Elijah felt a spark of determination ignite inside him. If they thought he was poor and unworthy of their attention, then he would show them just how wrong they were. Little did they know, Elijah had saved far more than they could ever imagine. With newfound resolve, Elijah continued exploring the store, his mind racing, with thoughts of what he would do next. He may have been looked down upon by the staff, but he refused to let their prejudice define him. This visit was no longer just about buying furniture, it was about proving a point. And Elijah knew exactly how to make his message clear. Though the experience left a bitter taste in his mouth, Elijah's quiet strength never wavered. Every step he took through the showroom was filled with purpose. He was ready to teach these individuals a lesson they wouldn't soon forget, one that went beyond dollars and cents. As he prepared to approach the manager, Elijah's calm demeanor masked the storm brewing beneath the surface. What happened next would leave everyone in the store speechless. Elijah stood silently in front of the mahogany dining set, his eyes fixed on its smooth surface. He ran a hand over the table's edge, feeling the cool wood beneath his fingertips. It was perfect, the kind of piece that would bring warmth and elegance to his home. But as he stood there, he couldn't ignore the way the staff treated him compared to the other customers. Every glance, every whisper, every dismissive gesture confirmed what he already knew. They saw him not as a potential buyer but as someone unworthy of their time. The young couple who had approached the same dining set were still surrounded by salespeople. One of them enthusiastically explained how the mahogany came from sustainable forests, while another pointed out the intricate details carved into the legs of the chairs. Their voices carried across the showroom, loud and animated, while Elijah remained invisible just a few feet away. He didn't need to hear their words to understand the message being sent. His presence wasn't valued here. A middle-aged woman working behind the counter caught Elijah's eye as she leaned toward her colleague. Though she tried to lower her voice, her words reached him clearly. People like him shouldn't waste our time if they're just going to look. Her tone dripped with condescension, and though Elijah kept his face calm, her comment burned like acid. These weren't isolated incidents, they were part of a pattern, a belief system rooted in prejudice. The staff assumed he couldn't afford anything expensive, so they dismissed him without even trying to find out. Instead of confronting her or allowing anger to take hold, Elijah took a deep breath. He reminded himself why he was there, not to fight but to prove a point. If these people thought he was poor and unworthy, then he would show them just how wrong they were. With quiet determination, he began making mental notes of everything he wanted to buy. The mahogany dining set was only the beginning. As he moved through the store, Elijah noticed how differently others were treated. A white businessman in an expensive suit walked in and immediately drew the attention of several employees. They flocked around him, offering smiles and eager assistance before he even said a word. When he casually mentioned looking for a leather sectional sofa, the staff practically tripped over themselves to show him options. Discounts were offered, complimentary refreshments were brought, and promises of free delivery were made, all within minutes of his arrival. Watching this blatant favoritism unfold made Elijah's heart ache, but it also fueled his resolve. He knew exactly what he needed to do next. Quietly, he flagged down the manager, a tall man wearing a neatly pressed blazer. Introducing himself politely, Elijah explained that he wished to purchase the mahogany dining set, along with several other high-end items, including the leather sectional sofa and a king-sized bed frame. The manager's eyes widened slightly, surprised by Elijah's request, and he quickly summoned a senior sales associate to assist him. For the first time since entering the store, Elijah received undivided attention. The staff scrambled to pull out catalogs, jot down measurements, and calculate totals. Their earlier indifference vanished, replaced by forced charm and exaggerated enthusiasm. As they worked, Elijah allowed himself a small, private smile. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the moment when their assumptions would crumble under the weight of reality. When the final bill came to nearly $50,000, a sum far beyond what most people in the store would expect someone like Elijah to spend, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Whispers filled the air as employees exchanged shocked glances. The rude saleswoman who had mocked Elijah earlier now hovered anxiously nearby, trying to make amends. Another employee muttered apologies under her breath, hoping to undo the damage caused by their earlier behavior. But Elijah remained composed, handing over his credit card and signing the receipt without hesitation. His calm demeanor spoke volumes, leaving the staff speechless. For years, they had judged customers based on appearances, assuming wealth belonged exclusively to certain groups. Now faced with undeniable proof of their mistake, they struggled to process what had just happened. As the transaction processed, the room fell silent. Everyone present, from the manager to the junior salespeople, was stunned by the realization of their misplaced assumptions. What started as a routine shopping trip had turned into a lesson none of them would soon forget. And though no one dared to speak, the weight of Elijah's actions hung heavy in the air, forcing each person to confront their own biases. Before leaving the store, Elijah paused near the entrance. Turning to face the group of employees gathered there, he delivered a parting remark that left a lasting impression. Respect is free, but ignorance comes at a cost. Remember that. With those words, he stepped outside, leaving behind a crowd, grappling with shame and regret. What Elijah did that day went beyond buying furniture. It was a powerful statement, a reminder that dignity and respect should never be conditional. By choosing grace over anger, he turned a painful experience into a teachable moment, and though the journey ahead would still hold challenges, his actions planted seeds of hope, seeds that would continue to grow long after the headlines faded. This section highlights the growing tension between Elijah and the prejudiced staff, building up to the climactic reveal of his financial power. It emphasizes the stark contrast in treatment and sets the stage for the lessons learned later in the story. Let me know if you'd like adjustments or further elaborations. The moment Elijah handed over his credit card to finalize the purchase, the entire atmosphere in the furniture store shifted. The staff, who had earlier treated him with indifference, or worse, outright disdain, were now scrambling to make up for their behavior. Their movements were hurried, almost frantic, as if they suddenly realized they had underestimated the man standing before them. For Elijah, it was a strange yet satisfying feeling. He could see the truth written all over their faces: shock, disbelief, and perhaps even a hint of guilt. When the manager saw the total amount on the receipt, nearly $50,000, he nearly choked on his own breath. His eyes darted between the paper in his hand and Elijah's calm expression. "Sir," he stammered, trying to regain his composure, "this is quite an impressive selection you've made. Is there anything else we can assist you with?" It was clear that his tone had changed entirely. Gone was the dismissive attitude. Instead, he sounded almost desperate to ensure Elijah left satisfied. Elijah simply smiled, a quiet but knowing smile that spoke volumes. "No, I think this will do just fine," he replied smoothly, his voice steady and polite. As the transaction processed, the room grew eerily silent. The other customers noticed the tension too. Some whispered among themselves, speculating about what had just happened. One woman leaned toward her husband and muttered, "Did you see how much he spent? That's more than my car costs." Her words carried across the showroom, drawing curious glances from others nearby. Meanwhile, the rude saleswoman who had mocked Elijah earlier now hovered anxiously by his side. She kept offering unnecessary assistance, bringing him brochures and catalogs he hadn't asked for. "Let me know if there's anything else I can help you with, Mr. Johnson," she said sweetly, her voice dripping with insincerity. Elijah nodded politely but didn't engage further. He knew exactly what she was doing, trying to undo the damage caused by her earlier comments, but he wasn't interested in giving her false comfort. Let her stew in her own regret, he thought. As the final signatures were added to the paperwork, the manager stepped forward again, this time extending his hand. "Thank you so much for your business, sir," he said, forcing a wide grin. "We truly appreciate it." Elijah shook his hand firmly, maintaining eye contact. Then, without raising his voice or losing his composure, he delivered a remark that cut deeper than any accusation ever could. "I hope this teaches you all something valuable about judging others based on appearances." His words hung heavy in the air, silencing everyone within earshot. The manager's smile faltered and the salespeople exchanged uneasy glances. They understood perfectly what Elijah meant, and none of them dared to argue. After years of being judged unfairly because of the color of his skin, Elijah had turned the tables on them in the most unexpected way possible. By showing them the error of their assumptions, he forced them to confront their own biases head-on. Once the delivery arrangements were finalized, Elijah prepared to leave the store. Before stepping out, he paused near the entrance and addressed the group of employees gathered there. In a voice steady with wisdom earned through decades of life experience, he said, "Respect is free, but ignorance comes at a cost. Remember that." With those parting words, he walked out of the showroom, leaving behind a crowd grappling with shame and regret. Outside, the sun was still shining brightly, casting golden rays onto the pavement. Elijah took a deep breath, feeling a mix of emotions swirl inside him. On one hand, he felt a sense of triumph, a quiet satisfaction in knowing he had stood up for himself in a way that no one would forget. But on the other hand, he couldn't ignore the sadness that lingered. Why did people feel the need to judge others so harshly? Why did they assume wealth and worth were tied to race or appearance? As he made his way back home, Elijah reflected on the events of the day. He hadn't set out to teach anyone a lesson when he entered the store that morning. All he wanted was to buy furniture for his family, a simple act that should have been straightforward. Yet the prejudice he encountered forced him to take a stand, not just for himself but for everyone who had ever been treated unfairly because of stereotypes. Back at his house, Elijah sat down in his living room and allowed himself a moment of peace. He imagined how different the space would look once the new furniture arrived, the mahogany dining table gleaming under the light, the leather sectional sofa inviting guests to sit and stay a while. These pieces weren't just objects. They represented his hard work, his dreams, and his refusal to let anyone diminish his dignity. Word of what happened at the furniture store spread quickly throughout the community. Neighbors heard about Elijah's extravagant purchase and the lesson he delivered to the prejudiced staff. Some stopped by his house to congratulate him, sharing stories of their own encounters with discrimination and expressing gratitude for his courage. Others posted about it on social media, sparking conversations about racism and classism. Local news outlets picked up the story, turning Elijah into an unlikely hero. For the staff at the furniture store, however, the aftermath proved challenging. Several employees faced disciplinary action, while the manager implemented mandatory diversity training sessions for the entire team. The store issued a public apology, acknowledging the harm caused by their behavior and pledging to foster a more inclusive environment moving forward. Yet no amount of policy changes could erase the sting of having misjudged someone so profoundly and losing their trust in the process. Despite the attention and praise he received, Elijah remained humble. When reporters asked him about his motivations, he emphasized that his goal wasn't revenge but change. "This isn't about me," he told them. "It's about reminding people that respect should never depend on how much money you have in your pocket or the color of your skin. Everyone deserves to be treated fairly." In the days that followed, Elijah continued going about his life as usual. He greeted his neighbors with the same warm smile he always had, refusing to let bitterness take root in his heart. But deep down, he knew something important had shifted, not just for him but for everyone who witnessed what happened that day. By choosing grace over anger, he had turned a painful experience into a powerful message, one that resonated far beyond the walls of the furniture store. And though the road ahead still held challenges, Elijah's actions planted seeds of hope, seeds that would continue to grow long after the headlines faded. The ripple effects of Elijah's actions didn't stop at the furniture store. What began as a personal triumph quickly turned into a community-wide conversation about prejudice and respect. News of the incident spread like wildfire, fueled by social media posts and local gossip. People couldn't stop talking about the elderly black man who had walked into the store dressed simply, only to leave having spent nearly $50,000 while teaching the staff an unforgettable lesson. The story struck a chord with many, sparking both admiration for Elijah's poise and outrage over the treatment he endured. For the employees at the furniture store, however, life became increasingly uncomfortable in the days following the event. Social media was ablaze with screenshots of customer reviews detailing similar experiences of discrimination. Some former patrons recounted being ignored or treated poorly because of their race or appearance. Others shared stories of witnessing blatant favoritism toward wealthier-looking customers. These accounts painted a damning picture of the store's culture, one that prioritized assumptions over genuine service. The rude saleswoman who had mocked Elijah faced the harshest backlash. Her whispered comment about People wasting our time had been overheard by another customer, who later posted it online along with a description of her behavior. Within hours, her name and photo were circulating on various platforms, accompanied by calls for her dismissal. Though she tried to defend herself, claiming she hadn't meant any harm, her excuses fell flat. The manager ultimately suspended her pending an internal investigation, a decision that sent shockwaves through the rest of the staff. Other employees weren't spared either. Several junior salespeople admitted to feeling pressured to cater exclusively to certain types of customers, often ignoring those they deemed unlikely to make large purchases. One young man confessed during a team meeting that he had once been reprimanded by his supervisor for spending too much time assisting a visibly low-income family. "I didn't want to treat anyone unfairly," he said, his voice trembling, "but I was told we needed to focus on high-value clients." His admission revealed a deeper issue: systemic bias embedded not just in individual attitudes, but in the very policies of the store itself. In response to the growing controversy, the manager issued a public apology, acknowledging the harm caused by the staff's behavior. He promised sweeping changes, including mandatory diversity training sessions for all employees and a revised code of conduct emphasizing inclusivity and respect. Flyers advertising these initiatives appeared in the store windows, alongside banners proclaiming, "Everyone is welcome here." While some applauded the efforts, others remained skeptical, questioning whether such measures would truly address the root of the problem. Despite the outward attempts to rectify the situation, tensions inside the store ran high. Employees avoided eye contact with each other, ashamed of their roles in perpetuating prejudice. Some even quit, unable to bear the weight of public scrutiny. For those who stayed, the experience served as a wake-up call, a stark reminder of how harmful stereotypes could shape interactions in ways they hadn't fully understood before. Meanwhile, Elijah's quiet dignity continued to inspire those around him. Neighbors stopped by his house daily to express their support, sharing stories of their own struggles with discrimination. Many thanked him for standing up against injustice, saying his actions gave them hope that change was possible. Local leaders invited him to speak at community events, eager to amplify his message of equality and respect. Yet despite the attention, Elijah remained humble, deflecting praise and focusing instead on the bigger picture. "I'm not special," he told a reporter during one interview. "What happened to me happens to countless people every single day. The difference is, most don't get the chance to respond the way I did. My goal wasn't to humiliate anyone, it was to remind them that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, no matter what they look like or where they come from." His words resonated deeply, prompting many to reflect on their own biases. Parents used his story to teach their children about fairness and empathy. Teachers incorporated it into classroom discussions about racism and privilege. Even businesses outside the furniture industry took note, using the incident as a case study in workplace ethics seminars. Elijah's act of defiance had sparked a movement, one that transcended the confines of a single store. Back at the furniture store, the staff struggled to rebuild trust with their customers. Flyers and banners alone weren't enough. Real change required consistent effort and accountability. To demonstrate their commitment, the management introduced a new policy, allowing customers to provide anonymous feedback after each visit. This initiative aimed to create a safe space for people to voice concerns without fear of retaliation. Additionally, they partnered with local organizations focused on racial equity to conduct workshops and facilitate open dialogues about discrimination. While these steps marked progress, healing wouldn't happen overnight. Some customers vowed never to return to the store, citing past negative experiences. Others gave the staff a second chance, encouraged by the visible efforts to improve. Over time, the atmosphere inside the showroom began to shift. Employees learned to approach every customer with the same level of enthusiasm and respect, regardless of appearance or perceived financial status. Slowly but surely, the store started earning back its reputation, not as a place defined by prejudice, but as one striving toward inclusivity. For Elijah, the aftermath of his purchase brought unexpected challenges. Strangers sometimes recognized him in public, stopping to thank him or ask for advice. At first, he found the attention overwhelming, but he soon embraced it as an opportunity to spread positivity. Whenever someone approached him, he offered words of encouragement, urging them to stand firm in the face of adversity. "Don't let anyone make you feel small," he'd say. "You are worth more than they'll ever realize." Despite the praise, Elijah knew the fight against prejudice was far from over. Racism and classism were deeply ingrained issues that couldn't be solved by a single act of resistance. But he believed firmly in the power of small victories. Moments, like the one at the furniture store that forced people to confront their biases and reconsider their assumptions. Each step forward, no matter how tiny, brought society closer to true equality. As weeks turned into months, Elijah settled into his newly furnished home, surrounded by pieces that symbolized not just comfort, but resilience. The mahogany dining table became the centerpiece of countless family gatherings, while the leather sectional sofa provided a cozy spot for storytelling and laughter. Every corner of his home reflected his journey, a testament to the strength it took to rise above prejudice and prove that dignity knows no price tag. Though the headlines eventually faded and the buzz around his story subsided, Elijah's impact endured. His actions planted seeds of hope in the hearts of those who witnessed them, inspiring others to challenge injustice in their own lives. And though the road ahead still held obstacles, Elijah walked it with unwavering grace, confident that even the smallest acts of courage could light the way toward a brighter future. This section delves deeper into the aftermath of Elijah's purchase, exploring how it affected both the store and the wider community. It highlights the ripple effects of his actions and reinforces the themes of accountability, reflection, and growth. Let me know if you'd like adjustments or further elaborations. The story of Elijah Johnson and his encounter at the furniture store didn't fade away quietly. Instead, it grew legs of its own, spreading far beyond the small town where it had taken place. What started as a single incident of prejudice turned into a catalyst for change, sparking conversations across neighborhoods, workplaces, and even social media platforms. For many, Elijah's actions served as a mirror, reflecting uncomfortable truths about how society often judges people based on appearances rather than character. In the days following the event, local news outlets picked up the story, turning Elijah into an unlikely hero. Reporters flocked to his modest home, eager to interview him and learn more about the man behind the headlines. Despite the sudden attention, Elijah remained grounded, choosing to focus on the bigger picture rather than basking in personal glory. When asked why he decided to spend so much money after being treated poorly, he responded simply, "I wanted to show them that respect isn't something you earn, it's something you give freely." His words resonated deeply with listeners, prompting many to reflect on their own biases. Parents used Elijah's story to teach their children about fairness and empathy. Teachers incorporated it into classroom discussions about racism and privilege. Even businesses outside the furniture industry took note, using the incident as a case study in workplace ethics seminars. Elijah's quiet act of defiance had sparked a movement, one that transcended the confines of a single store. Social media played a significant role in amplifying Elijah's message. Videos recounting his experience went viral, racking up millions of views within days. Comment sections filled with messages of support, outrage over the staff's behavior, and pledges to shop elsewhere until real changes were made. Hashtags, like "Thaw and Respect is Free" and "Mar Elijah's Lesson," trended nationwide, drawing attention not only to this specific incident but also to broader issues of systemic racism and classism. People shared stories of similar experiences, times when they had been judged unfairly because of their race, clothing, or perceived income level. These collective voices created a powerful chorus, demanding accountability and change. For the employees at the furniture store, life became increasingly difficult. Social media posts naming and shaming individuals involved in the incident left some fearing for their jobs, and rightly so. The rude saleswoman who had mocked Elijah was eventually fired after an internal investigation confirmed her discriminatory remarks. Other staff members faced disciplinary action, ranging from formal warnings to mandatory sensitivity training. While these measures signaled progress, they couldn't undo the damage already done. Many customers vowed never to return to the store, citing past negative experiences as reasons for their boycott. The store's management scrambled to repair its tarnished reputation. Flyers advertising new inclusivity policies appeared in windows, alongside banners proclaiming, "Everyone is welcome here." Free workshops on diversity and unconscious bias were offered to both employees and the public. Managers personally apologized to affected customers, promising better treatment moving forward. Yet despite these efforts, skepticism lingered. Some patrons questioned whether the changes were merely performative, a desperate attempt to salvage profits rather than address deep-rooted issues. Outside the store, the community rallied around Elijah. Neighbors stopped by his house daily to express their gratitude, sharing stories of their own struggles with discrimination. Local leaders invited him to speak at community events, eager to amplify his message of equality and respect. Churches organized prayer sessions dedicated to combating racism, while schools held assemblies encouraging students to stand against prejudice. Elijah graciously accepted every invitation, using each opportunity to remind others that true strength lies in rising above adversity with dignity. One particularly memorable moment came during a town hall meeting hosted by the mayor. Dozens of residents gathered in the auditorium, eager to hear Elijah speak. As he stepped onto the stage, the room erupted in applause. Clad in his usual neat attire, Elijah smiled warmly before addressing the crowd. "What happened to me wasn't unusual," he began, his voice steady and calm. "It happens every day to black people, to poor people, to anyone who doesn't fit someone else's idea of worthy. My goal wasn't revenge. It was to remind us all that we're more alike than different. We all want the same things: respect, kindness, and a fair chance to live our lives without judgment." His speech moved many to tears. Afterward, attendees lined up to shake his hand, thanking him for inspiring them to be better versions of themselves. A young woman approached, him holding her toddler's hand. "Thank you for standing up for us," she said, her voice trembling. "I want my son to grow up in a world where he doesn't have to prove his worth to anyone." Elijah nodded, placing a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder. "That's what I'm fighting for too," he replied softly. Despite the praise, Elijah knew the battle against prejudice was far from over. Racism and classism were deeply ingrained issues that couldn't be solved overnight, or by a single act of resistance. But he believed firmly in the power of small victories. Each time someone chose to challenge injustice, no matter how seemingly insignificant, they chipped away at the walls of inequality. Every step forward brought society closer to true equality. Back at the furniture store, the staff continued grappling with the aftermath of their mistakes. Mandatory diversity training sessions forced them to confront uncomfortable truths about their attitudes and behaviors. Role-playing exercises simulated scenarios involving prejudiced assumptions, leaving participants visibly shaken. One employee broke down in tears during a session, admitting she had unknowingly contributed to a hostile environment for years. Another confessed feeling relieved to finally address topics that had long gone unspoken. Slowly, but surely, the atmosphere inside the showroom began to shift. Employees learned to approach every customer with the same level of enthusiasm and respect, regardless of appearance or perceived financial status. Anonymous feedback forms revealed gradual improvements in customer satisfaction ratings. Though trust wouldn't be rebuilt overnight, the store started earning back its reputation, not as a place defined by prejudice, but as one striving toward inclusivity. For Elijah, the weeks following his purchase brought unexpected challenges. Strangers sometimes recognized him in public, stopping to thank him or ask for advice. At first, he found the attention overwhelming, but he soon embraced it as an opportunity to spread positivity. Whenever someone approached him, he offered words of encouragement, urging them to stand firm in the face of adversity. "Don't let anyone make you feel small," he'd say. "You are worth more than they'll ever realize." Despite the spotlight, Elijah remained humble. deflecting praise and focusing instead on the bigger picture. He knew his actions had planted seeds of hope in the hearts of those who witnessed them, inspiring others to challenge injustice in their own lives. And though the road ahead still held obstacles, Elijah walked it with unwavering grace, confident that even the smallest acts of courage could light the way toward a brighter future. As months passed, Elijah settled into his newly furnished home, surrounded by pieces that symbolized not just comfort, but resilience. The mahogany dining table became the centerpiece of countless family gatherings, while the leather sectional sofa provided a cozy spot for storytelling and laughter. Every corner of his home reflected his journey, a testament to the strength it took to rise above prejudice and prove that dignity knows no price tag. Though the headlines eventually faded and the buzz around his story subsided, Elijah's impact endured. His actions planted seeds of hope in the hearts of those who witnessed them, inspiring others to challenge injustice in their own lives. And though the road ahead still held obstacles, Elijah walked it with unwavering grace, confident that even the smallest acts of courage could light the way toward a brighter future. As time went on, Elijah Johnson's story continued to resonate far beyond the furniture store where it all began. What started as a personal act of defiance against prejudice evolved into a powerful symbol of resilience and dignity. The lessons he taught through his actions rippled outward, touching lives in ways he could never have imagined. Though Elijah remained humble about his role in sparking change, there was no denying the profound impact he had left behind. In the months that followed, Elijah became something of a local legend. People from neighboring towns visited him, eager to meet the man who had stood up so gracefully against discrimination. Some came seeking advice on how to handle similar situations in their own lives, while others simply wanted to express their gratitude. Elijah welcomed them all with open arms, offering words of wisdom and encouragement. "Life will try to knock you down," he often said, "but you decide whether you stay down or rise higher." One day, a young college student named Marcus showed up at Elijah's door. He explained that he was writing a paper on modern-day heroes and felt compelled to include Elijah's story. Over tea, they talked for hours. Marcus listened intently as Elijah recounted not only the events at the furniture store, but also the struggles he had faced throughout his life. Growing up in a segregated South, working hard to provide for his family, and enduring countless moments of subtle and overt racism. By the end of their conversation, Marcus was visibly moved. "You're more than a hero," he told Elijah. "You're proof that kindness can conquer hate." The attention Elijah received wasn't limited to individuals. Organizations began reaching out too. A local nonprofit dedicated to combating racial inequality invited him to serve as an honorary board member. Schools requested that he speak at graduations and assemblies, inspiring students to embrace empathy and stand firm in the face of injustice. Even businesses sought his guidance, asking how they could create more inclusive environments for employees and customers alike. Through it all, Elijah maintained his characteristic humility, reminding everyone that true change required collective effort, not just individual acts of courage. Back at the furniture store, the staff continued grappling with the lessons they had learned. The mandatory diversity training sessions proved transformative for many, forcing them to confront biases they hadn't realized they held. One employee, a middle-aged woman named Lisa, found herself particularly affected. During one exercise, she broke down in tears, confessing that she had once turned away a customer because she assumed they couldn't afford anything. "I didn't think I was doing anything wrong," she admitted, "but now I see how harmful my assumptions were." Lisa wasn't alone in her awakening. Slowly but surely, the culture of the store began to shift. Employees made conscious efforts to treat every customer equally, regardless of appearance or perceived wealth. Anonymous feedback forms revealed steady improvements in customer satisfaction ratings. While some patrons remained skeptical, others gave the store another chance, encouraged by visible changes in attitude and policy. Over time, the showroom buzzed with a newfound energy, one rooted in inclusivity and mutual respect. Despite these positive developments, Elijah knew the fight against prejudice was far from over. Racism and classism were deeply ingrained issues that couldn't be eradicated overnight, or by a single person's actions, but he believed firmly in the power of small victories. Each time someone chose to challenge injustice, no matter how seemingly insignificant, they chipped away at the walls of inequality. Every step forward brought society closer to true equality. For Elijah, the most rewarding part of his journey was seeing how his story inspired others to take action. Neighbors organized community cleanup projects, turning neglected spaces into vibrant gathering spots. Local churches launched initiatives aimed at bridging racial divides, hosting potluck dinners and interfaith dialogues. Even children got involved, organizing fundraisers for underprivileged families and writing letters to elected officials advocating for fairer policies. Elijah attended as many events as he could, lending his support and sharing his belief that change starts with ordinary people doing extraordinary things. One evening, during a neighborhood barbecue, Elijah sat quietly in a corner, watching as families laughed and shared stories. His grandchildren played nearby, their giggles filling the air. As he sipped his lemonade, a young boy approached him shyly, clutching a drawing in his hand. "This is for you, Mr. Johnson," the child said, handing him the picture. It depicted a smiling figure surrounded by a crowd of people holding signs that read, "Respect and Equality." Elijah's eyes welled with tears as he thanked the boy, realizing that his legacy was already taking root in the next generation. Though Elijah cherished the recognition he received, he never lost sight of what truly mattered, creating a better world for those who came after him. He spent his days tending to his garden, reading books, and spending quality time with his family. The mahogany dining table he had purchased became a centerpiece for countless gatherings, each meal reinforcing the bonds of love and connection. For Elijah, this was the ultimate victory, not wealth or fame, but the joy of knowing he had made a difference. Years later, when Elijah passed away peacefully in his sleep, the entire town mourned his loss. Flags flew at half-mast and hundreds attended his funeral, paying tribute to the man who had touched so many lives. At the service, a pastor delivered a heartfelt eulogy, saying, "Elijah Johnson wasn't just a man, he was a movement. He taught us that dignity isn't something you earn, it's something you give freely. And in giving it, he changed the world." Even after his passing, Elijah's legacy lived on. Schools named scholarships in his honor, ensuring that future generations would remember his contributions. Community centers hosted annual events celebrating his life and values, keeping his message alive for years to come. Most importantly, the seeds of hope he had planted continued to grow, inspiring countless individuals to challenge injustice and strive for a more equitable society. In the end, Elijah's story was more than just a tale of one man standing up against prejudice. It was a testament to the power of grace, patience, and unwavering strength. By choosing to rise above hatred with dignity, he reminded everyone that respect is free. But ignorance comes at a cost. And though the road ahead still held challenges, Elijah's actions ensured that the journey toward equality would continue, guided by the light of his example.